So a team we need to talk about and maybe figure out what they're going to do at the trade deadline, but also beyond, is the San Francisco Giants. The Giants are the third worst team in Major League Baseball as we sit today. They are right there with the Colorado Rockies and the New York Mets. And that was not supposed to be the case when Buster Posey put this team together. They are just not clicking as a cohesive unit, as a 26-man roster. You bring in Tony Vitello from the University of Tennessee to be the manager. You know, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago with some of the things that Tony was dealing with on the learning curve that he would have to go through in his first year managing in the big leagues. But also, they're just not hitting like you thought the group of names in their lineup would hit. Guys like Rafael Devers and Jung-Hoo Lee, Willie Adames, Matt Chapman, Elliot Ramos. Those guys just as a team right now aren't playing well, aren't hitting well. And you start to ask yourself, what are the Giants going to do not only in 2026, because, you know, we're at a point in the year and we talk about Memorial Day being the day where teams look and evaluate themselves and say, hey, what are we? We're going to get to a point here really soon where the Giants have to look at themselves really closely and say, we're not a good baseball team. And how do we address this, not only for the interim, but for the future as well? And the answer to that is a lot more challenging and complex when you look at, you know, some of the financial commitments that the Giants have made over the last couple of years. Now, number one, Rafael Devers, when they traded for him, they took on all of that salary. Now, Rafi was on over a $300 million deal when he signed that with the Boston Red Sox. When the Giants acquired him, they took on all that money. There is still 8 years and $226.5 million on that deal if you include all of the 2026 season. Jung-Hoo Lee has 4 years, $87.5 million remaining on his deal. Willie Adames has 6 years, $156 million remaining on his deal. That is that one he signed last offseason. And then Matt Chapman, 5 years, $125.8 million remaining on his deal. And so when you look at all the financial commitments that the Giants have in front of them, you say, okay, even if you wanted to blow it up, how can you do that with some of the commitments, the performance? Because look, Rafael Devers has not played like a player with $226.5 million remaining on his deal. You know, Willie Adames has not been the guy that signed that $182 million deal a couple of off seasons ago. Like, he just hasn't looked like that guy offensively and defensively this season. And so you wonder how you can, do you have to just eat it for right now if you're Buster Posey and let those guys bounce back next season and beyond? Like, if you have a team out there that's willing to take on $226.5 million for Rafael Devers, please show me who that is. Because as of right now, I don't know a lot of teams in Major League Baseball, especially ahead of what could be a potential lockout coming after the season is up, that would want to take on that money, especially if Rafi's not performing like the, 850, 900 OPS player that he was when he signed that deal. And so for the Giants, they're not a team with a ton of young talent in their minor league system. Like, they're not a top 5, minor league system. They did promote Bryce Eldridge, who is one of their top prospects, last week. And so that's something that can provide a jolt, some youthful energy into their lineup. Should be a really talented player if he hits like many expect him to, one of the top prospects in Major League Baseball. But outside of that, they're a very veteran group of players. Obviously Matt Chapman and Willie Adames, and Rafi still has 8 years on his deal. And then you say, okay, well, what can you do in the interim being the 2026 season? There are a couple of guys that you could probably move. I think the guys that I named and are very hard to move in the next year. Elliot Ramos is a guy I think you could potentially move. He still has a couple of years of club control, was an all-star for the first time last year, having a decent season this year. that could be a guy that you could potentially package for some young players at the trade deadline. If there's a team that needs a corner outfielder, corner outfield bat, he could be a guy that fits that void. Robbie Ray is the surefire answer for the Giants at this year's deadline. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, having a decent season. That's the easy one, right? Robbie Ray should be, teams that need starting pitching, which is a lot of teams right now, they're probably calling Buster Posey about Robbie Ray. And then the last one, and this is one I know Giants fans probably don't want to hear, and especially for a guy that's been there for so long, a local product, Logan Webb. Now, Logan Webb had not been having the 2026 season that we have seen from him since he got to the big leagues. Logan Webb is one of the most consistent starting pitchers that we have in Major League Baseball, and this year it just has not been that. He's also on the IL currently, but if Logan Webb comes back off the IL and starts to look like the Logan Webb that we've seen for so many years, could that be a guy that you can move? I think if he shows that he's the same Logan Webb outside of the struggles, I think that's a guy that you could get a decent return on, because he did sign a more team-friendly extension a couple years ago. There's still some club control on that. And so for teams looking for starting pitching, maybe that's the guy that you look at and potentially try to acquire to bring in, because there's a lot of teams that would love a Logan Webb on their roster and would say, hey, with our pitching infrastructure, with our pitching lab, we get them in a different location with a chance to win. You see the Logan Webb that is a frontline starter in Major League Baseball. But that's why this is such a predicament for the San Francisco Giants, is because there's no easy fix. Any fix for the Giants, you're talking about 2 to 3 years away if the guys that they have in their lineup don't bounce back. And when you have a guy like a Rafael Devers that has over $200 million remaining on his deal, and the offense has fallen as much as it has, that's when you really start to get worried, because you never really talk about guys that aren't 30 yet, where you talk about having to eat money on deals and on contracts. And so for the Giants, that's one that they're going to have to ride out for a little while and hope that Rafael Devers turns back into the Rafael Devers that he was in Boston when he was an all-star, getting MVP votes, turn into that guy. Other than that, they're going to be in this kind of soup in the bottom third of the league, and that's a spot that no team wants to be in, especially for a couple of seasons. But in a division where you have the San Diego Padres, who have new ownership that has spent money, when you have a team in the Los Angeles Dodgers, and we know what they've done over the last several years and will continue to do with their ownership group's investment in them, and they have the best player in the world and some of the best players in the world, plural, you can't just be in the middle, or even worse, where the Giants are as the third worst team in Major League Baseball. Can't do that. So the Giants are going to have to pick a lane here, and I would say in the next 4 to 5 weeks, and decide what they want to be, not only in this year, but in the next couple of years as they go, to try to figure out what they want to be as an organization. Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode of The Relay with Russ Dorsey. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you have a question for me, be sure to drop it in the comments below, and we'll catch you again here next time.